Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Thursdays, wherever you may be across the nation or indeed around the world. I will be with Kelly Stewart for our college football and NFL gambling special, The Fade, which we will record shortly. But in the meantime, I will be back with all of you. I think right now the plan is Monday. But I will be on Big Noon Saturday, Fox's pregame show, with Luke Bryan. And can somebody clip this and share it with the entire OutKick email list? Everyone who works at OutKick is invited to my Halloween party. I thought everybody knew they were invited. If you are working at OutKick and you are seeing that, you are invited to the Travis family Halloween party tomorrow. For the millions of others of you out there, sorry, you're not invited. But if you work at OutKick, you and your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever are invited. All right, let me give you my PrizePicks pick. PrizePicks, best way to win real money this football season. You can make picks in less than a minute and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. You can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today. Use code OutKick. You get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. Code OutKick for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 picks. PrizePicks, run your game. Here's my game for the weekend. Lamar Jackson, less than 53.5 rushing yards. And then I've got 3 quarterbacks, and we're going more for all 3 quarterbacks. Jared Goff, more than 233.5 passing yards. Geno Smith, more than 242.5 passing yards. And Dak Prescott, more than 249.5 passing yards. If I'm wrong on those 4, then we will have a 10-1 payout, and we will win our third 10-1 payout of the year. All you have to do to get that, prizepicks.com. OutKick, you get $50. So go get signed up today, and you can play all of those picks. All right, let me give you the absolute latest. In 12 days from now, you will be able to go vote in the election. It is crazy town time. There are all different sorts of stories spiraling in every direction, as usually ends up being the case. Probably somewhere around 30 million or more of you have already voted, including me. I encourage you to get out and early vote. Here are the absolute latest numbers as it pertains to the gambling market overall. Trump is a 63% favorite right now to win. Kamala Harris, 37%. That is the absolute dead market latest. And I'm fascinated because this is going to come down, as many of you know, to the swing states. Trump is a 12 percentage point favorite right now to win Michigan, 56-44. Pennsylvania, he's a 14-point favorite, 57-43. He is a 71-30 favorite to win Georgia. He is a 68-33% favorite to win North Carolina, 56-45% favorite to win Wisconsin, 62-38 favorite to win Nevada, and 72-29% favorite to win Arizona. If you look at the latest voting numbers, many different states, you can see the early voting. That, to a large extent, I think is motivating the overall response that we are seeing. Florida, Dade County in Miami, that is Miami-Dade County, has flipped Republican. That is a huge deal. As recently as 2016, Hillary won Miami-Dade County by a substantial margin. Trump won Florida by around 3 points in 2020. Here is a prediction for you. If people continue to vote like they are right now, Trump is going to win Florida by 10 or more points. Trump won Florida by 3 in 2020. If he wins Florida by 10 or more points, it is a disastrous sign for Kamala. And it's why I think the data reflects that Trump not only has a very solid chance to win the Electoral College, I actually think Trump has a good shot to challenge to win the overall popular vote, because the margins in some of the big states are coming down. And I think in a big state like Florida, Trump is going to post a big number, and that number may be big enough, for instance, to cancel out whatever the margin that Kamala wins New York by, for instance. And certainly we know in a lot of red states like Tennessee and Kentucky and Alabama, where I live, that have somewhat of decent populations, Trump is going to win those states by a substantial margin. And so I think east of the Mississippi, think about this for a minute. Before we get out to California, I think Trump has a really good chance to win east of the Mississippi, the popular vote. And if he does well in Texas, he can cut into what's likely to be a decent margin in California, Washington, Oregon. Obviously, Trump's going to do really well in less populated parts of the West. But I think things are looking really, really good. Only thing you can do is go vote. You can get your friends and family to the polls as well. And if you're not already early voting, I don't want to hear any complaining. I don't want to hear any takes. Go get your votes in. That is the absolute latest out there. Okay, couple of other stories. Kamala went on for a CNN town hall, and she was a mess. She was a disaster. She got asked about her biggest weakness. She couldn't answer. She got asked about a mistake that she's made that she's learned from. She couldn't answer. She got asked about border policy. She couldn't answer. She got asked about the economy and why grocery prices were too high. She couldn't answer in a rational way. She and Tim Walz are the dumbest president and vice presidential candidate in the history of my life. And I am 45. And there's a meme going around. I think it's accurate. Barack Obama said, I need a vice president dumber than me. He picked Joe Biden. Joe Biden said, I need a vice president dumber than me. He picked Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris said, I need a vice president dumber than me. And we got Tim Walz. Every position since Obama has gotten dumber for the Democrats. And the end result is Kamala and Walz, who I think are going to get the floor wiped with them. But they now are saying that Trump is a fascist, that he is Hitler. Most people don't know what a fascist is, an authoritarian of the right, a dictator. But let me just ask you this. How can they make that argument when right now Democrats are trying to put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life based on felony charges they have brought in New York, Georgia, D.C., and Florida? They are trying to bankrupt him based on a novel legal theory, even though there was no money lost. In fact, all of the loans got repaid and everybody did fine. They've hit him with, I think, $450 million verdict. They have tried to bankrupt him based on changing the law in New York to allow sexual assault claims that were otherwise term limited, basically out. They were outside the statute of limitations. They have done everything they can to remove him from the ballot. It had to go all the way to the Supreme Court after Colorado said that Trump was not permissible to remain on the ballot. So they have also replaced the democratically nominated candidate, Joe Biden, with Kamala Harris, a woman who received 0 votes for president of the United States at all. If you truly thought that democracy was at stake, wouldn't the party that is trying to imprison their chief political rival for the rest of his life, that is trying to bankrupt him, that is trying to remove him from the ballot, that is trying to also elevate someone else who never received a single vote to try to beat him because the candidate that they nominated was trailing so badly, wouldn't you say that that was the anti-Democrat authoritarians in a position of power? In other words, everything that Democrats claim that Trump will do, they have already done themselves. And yet, it's like they don't even realize this fact. And so I think it's important to look at and say, hey, you know what? I was the guy who was sitting around saying maybe it's not a good idea to raid a former president's home in Mar-a-Lago. Maybe it's not a good idea to admit that Joe Biden also stole classified documents, but we're not going to prosecute him because his brain doesn't work well enough. Maybe it's not a good idea to hide the audio of the Joe Biden special counsel investigation interview. Maybe it's not a good idea for big media like 60 Minutes to not release the audio transcript of everything they said with Kamala Harris. Maybe, just possibly, everything that is being said about Democrats, that Democrats are saying about Donald Trump, that he will do, they're actually doing. And I give Trump to this because credit for this. He said today in an interview that he would actually consider pardoning Hunter Biden. Now, I believe that Joe Biden is going to pardon Hunter Biden. In fact, I would be shocked if he doesn't. But if Hunter Biden is not pardoned, I would advise Trump to pardon him when he comes into office. And some of you are going to be upset and you're going to say, what in the world are you talking about? I demand vengeance. The election is your vengeance. The election of Donald Trump is your vengeance. I think that Trump, in the same way that he did not prosecute Hillary Clinton, will actually extend a hand to prove how anti-dictatorial he actually is and not allow Hunter Biden to spend years in prison. Not because Hunter isn't democratically convicted by juries in both, at least in Delaware, and then he pled guilty in California, but because I think deep down Trump is not a bad guy. I really do. And I think he recognizes that Eric and Donald and Ivanka, as well as his other two kids, have been targeted and will be targeted because of him. And I think he sees that as being wrong. And I've always said this too. I think an honest politics would only target the candidate himself or herself, unless the individual puts him or herself into the mix. And look, with Hunter Biden, he tried to profit and make tens of millions of dollars off of his dad. He got completely protected until it became clear that it was too shameful to protect him, and then they kicked him to the curb. But I would actually give credit about the fact that Trump should be considering pardoning Hunter Biden, and I think it speaks to the fact that he's nothing like Hitler, that he is not a fascist, that he's not an authoritarian. I'll also point out, nobody even knows what a fascist is, and this is how desperate Democrats are now. Maybe 10% of the United States public can even define what a fascist is. They tried to brand him as racist. They tried to brand him as sexist. It didn't work, and now they've fallen back on fascism, and that's not going to work either. Speaking of somebody who misbehaved, Doug Emhoff got his nanny pregnant. That's how his first marriage came to a close. Kind of a bad dude. Just going to toss it out there. If you get your nanny pregnant, I think you basically are not only a moron, but also really disrespectful, because that person is coming into the house to take care of your kids. But that's point one. Point two, Daily Mail has a story up that Doug Emhoff was dating a woman who worked in a high-powered law firm. And that woman took him to Cannes on a date. He was wearing a tuxedo. It was a fancy event. They're standing in line to leave the event, and there is a long line at the valet. She said she goes to give $100 to the valet, and he got upset with her for some reason and smacked her so hard in the face that she spun around completely. She said that ended that relationship, and that Emhoff was creepy, and that overall she got fired up. She is a Democrat donor. She and her current husband have donated money, $10,000, she said, to Joe Biden's campaign. So she isn't some sort of right-wing activist. She said she was upset because she saw Doug Emhoff going around bragging about what a great man he was, and she said it's a complete lie. Now, this is significant because Kamala Harris tried to destroy Brett Kavanaugh's life. She made the decision, Kamala Harris did, to go after Brett Kavanaugh over completely, in my opinion, made-up allegations from Christine Blasey Ford when Kavanaugh was getting elevated to the Supreme Court. And she said at that time that hashtag believe all women demanded that if a woman made a claim of improper behavior by a man, that you had to, as a woman, believe it. How is it that no media outlet is asking Kamala Harris whether she believes this woman? Or does she believe that her husband did nothing wrong? By her standards, she has to believe that this woman is telling the truth. Now, I sound like an old dude here, but I got a crazy idea. Justice is blind for a reason. Someone's identity shouldn't dictate whether we believe or disbelieve the claims that they make. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, mixed race people, everybody lies. Every race has liars. Men lie, women lie, gay people lie, straight people lie. The entire purpose of a court of law is that you treat everyone the same, that justice is blind, and that you do not play favorites based on the identity of the individual involved. Kamala Harris should know this because she likes to brag about how she's a prosecutor. Well, if you looked at the allegations brought by Christine Blasey Ford, they were complete crap. It wasn't in any way a crime, even if you accept the totality of her allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. And so Doug Emhoff should have to answer for these questions. The media, if we had an honest media, would be grilling Kamala on them because Doug Emhoff has tried to lecture you and me and other men out there about not being examples of toxic masculinity when he's actually the perfect distillation of toxic masculinity. He got his nanny pregnant, ended his first marriage, and physically assaulted, domestically abused, according to her, another girlfriend that he dated. This dude is way worse than most men out there. Unless you've gotten your nanny pregnant and unless you have physically assaulted a woman, you are nowhere near as bad of a dude as Doug Emhoff, and you probably have not been lecturing everybody on what a great dude you are and how men should behave, unlike Doug Emhoff. Now, a couple of other stories that are out there. I give credit to Riley Gaines, who is doing an incredible job continuing to shine a light on this issue. You know that neither Joe Biden nor Kamala Harris has been asked whether they believe men who identify as women should be able to compete in women's athletics. It still has not been asked of them. Yet there is a story out there that is up on OutKick, and I've seen it shared from Riley and several other people, including J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter author, that 890 medals have been stolen from women by men pretending to be women and competing in women's athletics. For something that Democrats like to claim doesn't happen very often, that's a lot of happening. And I can't believe that we're having this conversation in the world today, but I also think it's something that they should have to answer for. My answer is men should compete against men and women should compete against women. And that is something that I would say 90% of male sports fans, maybe higher, believe, and that 80% of men and women sports fans believe, and it may be higher than that. The fact that this is ignored, not discussed, pretended to not exist, is a profound failure of both the sports and the political media. At some point, inclusion becomes exclusion. And men pretending to be women, taking over women's championships, is excluding women from their own sports and favoring men in the process. And this, to me, feels like a very foundational question that says a lot about what you believe in 2024. And I think it's indicative of why so many men out there are overwhelmingly going to be supporting Donald Trump going forward. Finally, I saw this story. I couldn't believe it was real. There is a report. Adam confirmed that this is real, that all of this celebrities who are showing up and participating in favor of Kamala Harris. And let me just say this. I like Eminem. I like Taylor Swift. There are celebrities whose music I like that I disagree with politically. I don't think they're very well informed. I thought Eminem was crazy when he walked out at Detroit and said that he was voting for Kamala Harris because he was afraid that Trump would do something to people if they voted against him. Does he remember the first Trump term? Is he aware of what Democrats are doing to Republicans now? If I would think, of all people, if you believe in free speech, and I would certainly say Eminem has to based on his music, and you are anti-cancel culture, I don't see any way at all that you could be voting for Kamala Harris. But Eminem shows up at a rally. You've got Lizzo showing up at a rally. And there is a report that Lizzo billed the Kamala Harris campaign $2.3 million to show up at her rally. I saw this story and I just couldn't believe it. I have shown up for a lot of public events. Unless it is a private event, I almost never accept payment to speak at events. Look, if you're going to ask me to travel and it's a private event and you're charging people to show up at that event, you asking me to give my time and effort and energy, typically I want payment. I am going to be with Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania on Saturday before the election. He's running for the Senate in Pennsylvania. I'm not accepting payment for that. I've spoken for Herschel Walker. I've spoken for Marsha Blackburn. I've never been paid anything to speak at any political rally. And I would actually be embarrassed and ashamed to accept payment to do that, much less $2.3 million. Now, I'm a capitalist, but if I care enough to show up at a rally and speak on behalf of somebody, I would rather them spend the money that would go to me on trying to get outreach and win the election. I saw this story, again, it's a report that Lizzo was paid $2.3 million, and I flat out was in disbelief that could be happening. Just wild to me beyond a shadow of a doubt. All right. I love all of you. We're going to now record the fade with Kelly Stewart. We'll talk college football and the NFL. Again, my pick for PrizePicks, use code OutKick. You get $50. Lamar less than 53.5 rushing yards. Jared Goff, Geno Smith, and Dak Prescott all more on the passing yards front. If I am correct, 10-1 payout. One more time. Saturday, I will be on Big Noon with country music superstar Luke Bryan. Looking forward to that. The fade with Kelly Stewart will be up a little bit later this afternoon. NFL and college football gambling picks for all of you that love the NFL and college football. I'll be on Big Noon. If you are an OutKick employee, you are invited to my Halloween party. And I wanted to make sure, I thought everybody knew, but if they don't and you're seeing this, clip it, share it with the entire OutKick community. You're all invited to come. And I will be back with all of you on Monday. Cannot wait. Get out and vote. Make your voice heard. And I look forward to talking with you guys on Monday as we will be under double digits, right? It'll be 8 days out from the election on Monday. Get your votes in. Picks are up on OutKick. If you're wondering about college football and the NFL, they'll all be up there. One other thing, I did a podcast. If you're like, man, I'm sick of politics, I just want to laugh a little bit, I did a podcast with comedian John Christ. Lots of fun. It's an hour and a half long. Maybe you're going to be on the road. Maybe you want something to listen to. Fun conversation. It is up. I shared it. Not serious at all from a political perspective, but I think you guys will laugh, and I think you'll enjoy it. Me, comedian John Christ, that is out there for all of you to see. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP, I am Clay Travis. Gambling show next. This has been OutKick, the show.